today about how do we, even when executives are, how do we convince people with a business case on sustainability, or how do we get the executives to translate it to from top down to the ground floor, to the people that actually need to implement it. But one key message that I would want to give is that if you have ideas, try and test them. So the approach that we have at the Behavioural Insights team is to use randomized controlled trials, where you have an intervention that you deliver to a randomly selected sort of subsample of your population to see if it actually works. So, and we have found things to work very well. We've also learned things where we thought things were going to work and they didn't. But the point is that things can be tested, and this is very exciting. So I would definitely encourage people to go out and test ideas that you have. Some of the things we've done at the Behavioural Insights team to nudge people in the direction of changing their behavior is to apply things such as social norms, or doing them a small favor. And we have found that to be disproportionately effective in getting people to respond. So, for example, with social norms, one trial we did with HMRC was for people who had outstanding tax payments. We informed them that they were in the minority, or that the vast majority of people in their area do pay their tax on time. And we found we got a response rate of an increase of about 6 percentage points, translating to, in terms of impact, it was about £200 million that was brought forward in tax debt just from that single trial. So we found those small changes to be very effective.
So I think social psychology can play a big role in ethical trade, because I think it has the ability to sort of deliver more carrots to the traditional, perhaps not stick arguments, but to avoid things. I think ethical trade, the origins have been of avoiding scandals over indentured labour or fires in certain factories, or basically avoiding difficulty over strikes, etc. But making more of the positive arguments about why it should be central to a business to have ethical trade at their core. I think psychology can do a lot there. It can clarify the positive impacts that ethical trade can have on the bottom line, on what consumers think about it. You can understand why, for example, consumers might want to buy an ethical trade product more, because we can say it's because it's done in this way, or it's marketed in that way, and therefore it's a more successful strategy to sell, etc. That can also have impact back into the boardroom, because obviously we're about trying to influence the decision makers, and they often do go on a cost argument. It can also deliver clarity to those within organisations, so they can understand, again, those positive impacts about ethical trade and the difference that it can make there. I think also it can help us to understand what people's perceptions of ethical trade are, and therefore align to them more, because different groups, whether it's in an organisation, it's the HR group or the finance group, or whether it's externally consumers, government stakeholders, they will all have different understandings about certain elements of ethical trade. So if we can understand where they're coming from and what's important to them, we can shape the best arguments to try and influence them. And that's why I think social psychology, applied social psychology, has a big role to play in making ethical trade much more a core element of business. Is that this has been an area quite for large organisations who maybe have budgets or have the teams that can look specifically at this. Maybe they have a corporate social responsibility officer, for example, who can make this their core area about ethical trade. Lots of SMEs don't have that. So again, it's about how can you apply this knowledge to SMEs and how can you give them the best tools to do it. So one of the things that we will be looking to do through the application of social psychology when we're doing it with clients is trying to take out best practices, sort of guides, that can then be imparted down to SMEs. Because whenever anyone starts an SME, and I've done it myself, it's very stressful, there's a lot of risk. You're looking, where's the best practice if I want to do something? And if we can give simple guides so you can start the process of people in SMEs right from when the inception of that company happens, that this is a core part of how they're a successful business, they're going to take it on board, as opposed to if they do the traditional business argument, get big, and then they feel they have to incorporate ethical trade ideas and initiatives. So I think simple tools to help them, and the more that we do this, I think the more there will be different measures and tools that come out and can be directly applicable to SMEs. So give them tool sets to do it, and then over time we're going to have more chance and scope to look at areas specific to SMEs, so they have the tools and the means to actually apply behaviour change and get the benefits. Well, I think in light of the discussion we've had today, we've seen the growth of ethical trade over the last 2 decades. It's very important to consumers. I think that Ipsos Mori in their Sustainable Business Guide this year said that now 23%, almost a quarter of consumers would be willing to even boycott a product because of corporate responsibility. So it's the heart of things. But what's not been translated is how you take that interest across to actually driving your business model, i.e. how it can deliver sales, how it can make you more robust, more effective. That's where I think that social psychology has a real role to play in sort of adding the carrots that we talked about earlier, in enabling business to really look at all different types of arguments, different ways of expressing the benefits of ethical trade in order to get the backing of people actually using their products or using their organisation because they're driven by ethical trade initiatives. And I think that's the missing key that we need to put in there. And then I think that there can be a real alignment between social psychology, ethical trade, and using it to push business forward in a really positive way.